When the mind stops searching, when it stops wanting refuge, when it no longer goes in search of security, when it no longer craves more books and information, when it ignores even the memory of desire, only then will love arrive within. What is love? Why do we often relate love to the organ of the heart? Could it be that there is far more to this gland than we realize? This episode will cover the key to deep meditation and intuition, and we will also cover how this chakra is the central point through which all the other chakras should work through. In other words, this is the seat of our conscience as well as the judge and governor of whether those chakras will spin positively or negatively, making it the most important chakra. As long as you have this chakra always balanced, you will always reside in the higher dimensions of consciousness. This is where karma is first born. Because if we do not learn to listen to the silent intelligence of the heart center, then we inevitably create calmer suffering and lower states of consciousness. So this is the 5th episode in this series on awakening the chakras, where we'll cover the heart chakra, Anahata in Sanskrit, the Church of Thyatara, and is the color green. By the way, I've been getting a lot of questions related to things I covered in previous episodes in this series, so just a reminder, if you're really interested in all of this, please do start from episode 1. So the heart chakra is where we all come together as a species. Out of all of the religions, love is the most accessible one. Accordingly, this is where all intellectual understanding is synthesized into feeling. It's one thing to know something intellectually and a completely other thing to know it through not just emotion but superior emotions through sensing. One may even call this a sixth sense, intuitive. One could very much say that the heart center is the superior way of knowing intellectual information. And when it comes to romance and relationships, everyone, no matter who you are, can be changed through love. Everyone has this universal understanding of this. Even the most senile, decrepit, hateful and bitter of people can be changed through love. If people like that find love, so much energy is restored to them and they transform at their core. This chakra is the core of our conscious awareness, and when we're disconnected from that, that is when we become hateful, senile, decrepit, bitter. But when such a person finds love, they suddenly become motivated in many ways, or their mood is elevated while ecstasy and happiness is felt in the body. This chakra is also where decisions are made. If we want to live a spiritual life, being decisive is crucial, especially when it comes to the heart chakra. Have you heard the saying, someone had a change of heart and they suddenly changed their decision about something, so it doesn't matter if the head saw or liked something, or even the lower chakras saw or liked something. It is the heart that chooses where we go and what we do in any aspects in life. But in most of us, this fantastic organ is atrophied and unbalanced in its many parts. You may already know that there is an inherent nervous system within the heart made up of 40,000 neurons similar to brain neurons. Research shows that it can learn, remember, feel and sense independently. So clearly there is a much deeper intelligence or dimension to be found within the energy felt within our chest specifically, which is to the left side a bit, which of course in biological terms means that it is more connected to the right side of the brain, since biologically speaking the left hemisphere controls the right side of the body and the right hemisphere controls the left side of the body. A major challenge today is understanding the true meaning of love, as our perceptions are shaped by ideologies from movies, books, social media, and concepts like marriage, religion, spirituality, money, and social status, none of which truly define or embody love. They can be catalysts so that we can experience love through those means, but they are not love itself. If we thought they were actual sources of love, we would truly be miserable human beings desperately and conditionally attached to these things. But may we already be like that? Well, of course we are when we spend time only looking externally and are blind to how the internal phenomenon of love arises within. What most of us are seeking every day does not lead to happiness. It's fleeting. Even most high-end, rich and famous celebrities are not actually happy. And why? Because they've developed in the solar plexus region, which, remember, is the region of the actor or actress. They're extremely skilled at manipulating and mastering the ego, or their expression of personality. But if that's all they value, which the world certainly keeps telling them that that's what they are, and that persona is what makes them valuable, well, if that celebrity identifies with that strong thinking that that's what makes them great instead of something deeper, then that person is completely blocking themselves from the heart chakra, where they can begin to find true happiness. It's tricky for people without spiritual direction because they often focus too much on how others perceive them, which is just a surface level phenomenon, not something real or lasting. You're not just an idea or a persona, you're something much deeper, a profound layer of consciousness with far greater value than your job or personality. This is something we can all reflect on and apply to ourselves. What kind of ego, what kind of personality do we have? Are we identified with that? Are we identified with the idea of what we like and what we dislike and what we do and what is our job? It's certainly something we have to meditate on if we want To break free from the boundaries and shackles of the idea of ourselves and grow in awareness and expand our awareness beyond the idea of ourselves. So in conclusion, don't love your ego too much. We also have to hate ourselves in some sense, especially those parts of ourselves in which our ideas and dreams of ourselves are destructive and egoic. It's just a material tool, a physical expression. So this is why we have to work on the lower chakras where our love has been skewed in many ways. We all love lower things, drama, gossip, things, people, but we barely find love for the divine, for something transcendental, that which is beyond all of this, out of this world quite literally. And we don't because we struggle to see the logic in it. So accordingly, a lot of us love many things, right? But what is love? The ego will define this word in any way it feels. It's like the word God, which is such an overused term. So we should first be very mindful that it is just the word, just the sound that comes out of our mouth. And if we experience the direct reality to which the word love points to, we won't be able to do it justice with words. We won't be able to define it with language at all. That's the problem and the mystery of it, but which also makes it so wonderful and transcendental when we do find it. We could say a few definitions of what it is and not, such as love is not merely something sentimental or emotional. It is a very profound and intelligent dimension of consciousness which can expand our life in ways we can't currently imagine. Especially high degrees of love that comes from within a very pure center within it literally has the power to heal not only you and your physical body but other people as well. With people where that love is within such a high vibration, such a high frequency, just being in the presence of those kinds of people or those kinds of beings has a profound effect and no words even have to be said. I've had various experiences like this. A couple of times in the physical with certain people and more often in the astral plane meeting certain beings who are just far beyond our earthly understanding of love. It's like a love that is almost scary, but so powerful that it can bring you to your knees and you can start to just cry out of a place you've never cried before. When it's experienced in the physical plane, there's a sort of inherent understanding that comes from the basis of it all. We understand the beautiful connection we have and throughout all things, recognizing how you perceive everyone else as an expression of you, an extension of you. And there's so much joy in this and so much life-affirming energy in this feeling of where nothing is separate and everything is connected, and that you are part of a much larger intelligence at work and that you realize directly that consciousness is not in the body. The body is in consciousness as well as everything else. Let me touch on what is the main and central theme for almost every song, movie, novel, or any other kind of human artistic expression, which is usually some kind of intimate relationship. The pursuit of love and romance. This feeling and longing to be with another perfect soul is integral to each and every one of us. In reality, this feeling comes from the spiritual instinct to merge and have sacred union with our own soul. Remember, as explored in the previous episodes, that we don't have a soul right now, or more precisely, the soul is in shackles or bottled up by the ego. And this relates to fantasy stories such as the princess stuck in the castle and the hero has to go and save the princess because the soul is usually depicted as feminine. In Gnosticism, this is also understood as Sophia in the Gnostic Bible, Pistis Sophia. Now, of course, most of us barely think about the soul, and instead we project this innate and natural desire outwards to people, instead thinking that we will find some kind of soulmate who will finally make us happy. This is perhaps one of the most destructive ways to approach a relationship. How is that anything to do with love? That a person must fit your demands of what you and your delusions think makes them perfect? And then what happens when they turn out to not be in alignment with your fantasies of who you thought they were after marrying them? Conflict arises, and we don't like that conflict, which is another mistake. We have to learn to lovingly embrace conflict in order to transcend even higher together, whether it conflicts in personal issues or with your partner. We have to embrace conflict, and the heart usually turns away from that. It turns a blind eye, and being in an intimate relationship often brings things to the surface you wouldn't usually discover as quickly or easily as if you were alone. And so this is how relationships can be a very powerful tool for deepening your own self-realization, and also why most people don't stay together for very long. It's not that they can't stand being with that person, but that they can't stand being with themselves. So similarly, as we explored in the previous episode about the solar plexus chakra, there is a massive aspect of inner fight for our soul. And it is not just limited to that chakra, it is also in the heart too. As we saw, these two chakras are intimately related. So one basis for a successful intimate relationship is willingness to fight. Obviously not fighting others or domestic or heated arguments, full of hate, but to fight with nothing but love and self-sacrifice. When we first fall in love, which you may be able to recall in your younger days when you had a crush or an infatuation with someone, that there is really nothing but pure ecstasy and admiration for that soul that you have fallen in love with. You feel a burning in your chest. Cosmic energies are literally flowing into your heart and then stimulates the endocrine glands of your body and puts many hormones to work. It fills us with vitality and bliss. In ancient Greek, the word hormone means longing of being or strength of being. So then if it is so, you two get together and it's wonderful and amazing for some time because you both have sexual and psychological attraction. But then, after a while, especially if we use the relationship for a source of happiness and love instead of working on ourselves, then egoic issues that we've had from the beginning inevitably start to arise because we didn't deal with them properly. The relationship degenerates because as we've been exploring, all our energies are already going downwards and we have to be generators ourselves independently of this energy going upwards. If one person, at least in their relationship, is not working on themselves for those energies to go upwards, then the couple is going to fall into a lot of arguments and a lot of conflicts. So all of our energies going downwards, the fiery kundalini is not awakened in the couple, and this is all amplified by the fact that most people approach relationships as just another mode of consumerism instead of altruism. I've hinted in previous episodes that each chakra that is above governs the corresponding one below. That is true, except for the heart. The heart has so much more spiritual significance than what most of us assume, such as just falling in love or feeling sentimental emotions or just doing what is good or what we think is good. Remember that the heart is placed directly in between all of the main chakras below the heart. There are 3 inferior chakras above the heart. There are 3 superior chakras, so as you may be able to understand, the heart is the infinity symbol. With it being at the very center, this is the key to liberation, for without it, wisdom of the higher chakras will be useless. Spiritual powers useless, your entire life useless, meaningless and miserable. To have wisdom without love is actually a source of destruction and evil. The more wiser a person becomes who does not have love, does not have the chakra awakened, is much more dangerous than someone who has a lot of love and no wisdom. As mentioned in the previous episodes, we must not live simple-mindedly in the face of spiritual awakening. We have to become intelligent, and just as well we also must equally equilibrate that with the development of the heart through the highest form of good that we can conceptualize and then live towards that. Our ability to dream is not just there for the ego and fantasies, but it is there for a superior purpose too. It is there for us to play with and explore art in order to come to greater levels of forming ideas about the highest morality that we can think of and then apply ourselves to it. And this is where religion becomes so profound, because if you can use your imagination, your mind, your dreams about the most highest good, the most highest form of good, what would you think of? Just doing good deeds here and there? Or what about the amazing fantasy ideas about religion and sacrifice of Christ, of Buddha, of healing? These are the most profound and most sublime ideas, and why wouldn't we apply ourselves to that? Now if you study the anatomy of the heart, you'll see how one side pumps blood in one circuit and the other in another circuit. What's interesting is the 2 opposite blood streams don't collide with each other but help each other to advance together. The heart is concerned with rhythm, balance, and relationship. It's a sort of dance with yourself, and to push yourself in one direction will also push yourself into another direction. So accordingly, the heart has this affinity with the symbol of infinity. The infinity symbol has 2 sides, but should we be concerned with just one side? No, we have to focus on the center where we can have a good vantage point of each side in any given situation. This relates to duality. Duality in the sense of thinking, believing, and also action. And what we want to achieve is to not just understand dualistic situations, but to ascend this whole infinity symbol itself in levels of consciousness so that our conscience presents us with better options in any given situation. Our conscience being a dance on either side of the circuit of the symbol of infinity. Our conscience is that inner voice making decisions, classically depicted as an angel or a devil on either shoulder whispering into our ears. They're always there. From the moment you wake up, whether you're going to stay on Facebook for an hour on your phone or whether you get up and do some spiritual practice and seize the day, there is always that conscience at work of what you are going to do. So it's not that we should always listen to good or bad, but listen to both and understand the nature of duality and conflict within moments of doubts and struggle in our lives, and understand why we are in conflict in those moments. Obviously we always know deep down in our hearts what we should do and what's right, and that's related to the angel as opposed to the devil. But I'm also saying that we need to be conscious of our conscience so that we understand what's happening. We need to be aware of the processes and unconscious decisions of our heart center, whether good or bad, because with greater understanding brings more efficiency, and because similarly even the conscience itself can be atrophied. Or more precisely, misinterpreted. We create a bad connection, a bad relationship with our heart, because sometimes when we make decisions we think one action is good when it necessarily isn't, and that one action is bad when it necessarily isn't. And this also ties in nicely with the 3rd eye and crown chakra, because we need wisdom to understand the language of the heart too, and generally speaking everyone is fascinated with The heart center. If we were in touch with our heart center and listened to our conscience, we would do what we usually wouldn't. So to touch a little bit more on karma, in terms of archetypes and divinities, which I'm glad to see quite a few of you are enjoying learning about these gods and archetypes which are within us. There's an inner archetypal intelligence that we can reflect on to understand this in terms of not just our waking life but also our afterlife. Which is the hierarchical master of karma? Anubis. Which is the idea that where at the moment of our death Anubis weighs our heart on a scale and on the other end is a feather in order to see if our heart is as light as a feather. If it is, we ascend to the heavens. If not, he throws our soul to the underworld in order to keep learning. As someone who works with energy, I can tell you that this lightness of heart is a real thing. You can feel if someone's heart is heavy or not. Of course, there are many energies in between. It's not a simple-minded thing, but in its extremities there are those with relatively light hearts and those with heavy hearts. Those with heavy hearts pay a high price in terms of their day-to-day experience, and it usually comes with a lot of suffering. But remember also, having a heavy heart means there's more opportunity for enlightenment. So to have a heavy heart by itself is sort of a bad thing, but to have a heavy heart and work with it, transmute it every day, is to create a transcendentally strong heart, a strong soul. This symbolism of the Lord of Karma of Anubis with the scales can be something wonderful to meditate on with the purpose of getting in touch with our own heart and how it feels. That's already one practice that you can do if you resonate with that. The lower astral plane, the higher astral plane, the mental plane, our level of consciousness absolutely and completely determines what kind of environment and what kind of experience we shall inherit over there. It all determines. It's the fact that we move and are caught up in many dimensions at the same time which is the cause of suffering in waking life and in the afterlife. We are trapped in many different dimensions because our mind is split. You see, for many souls who have a lot of suffering, they don't just stay in heaven or hell. It's quite common to bounce back and forth. Just as we do in physical life, one day we are happy, another we are angry. This is akin to being caught in a storm. Hence the heart chakra is the element of air. Right now our airspace is full of winds coming from every direction. So many thoughts, possibilities, decisions, emotions, and dramas to manage in life, but we don't know how to manage them or which ones to choose or what direction we go in. How can we when we're overwhelmed and suffocated with so many forms and objects in our consciousness? We literally can't breathe, most of humanity. Does not breathe consciously. Look at anyone when you go out on the street, how nobody is breathing because they have a lack of this air element. We first need clarity in order to see the right way. We need to be in the center of our storm where there is stillness. Only then can we understand the causes of all this chaotic phenomena within us, and once we understand, we have the ability to control the elements of air and stop the storm. Hence the heart chakra is essential for meditation, for deep meditation. People who say they can't meditate are usually stuck with wondering about so many things while they're trying to meditate. So many questions such as, is this the right way? Am I doing this right? Oh, this feels weird. This is boring. Oh no, wait, I felt some bliss for a moment. I think, maybe if I do this or that I'll have a better meditation, etc. Not to mention all the rest of the random noise within. When in reality in those moments they are just caught up in the stream of thinking, caught up in the inner storm, and they are caught up and attached to this through identification. Once we disidentify, then we start to grow in awareness in the center of the storm, where there are no objects, where there is space to think. So the purpose is to disconnect from your thoughts and exercise awareness and observation over them. In other words, to disconnect from the storm and come back to the center. So the purpose of meditation is not to control thoughts but simply become aware of them. And be okay with that. Many people say I'm meditating, but there's so many thoughts, and that's a part of the practice. If you weren't meditating, you wouldn't be aware of those thoughts in the first place. Do you think those thoughts are there when you're not meditating? Of course they are. And there are many layers to our consciousness and subconsciousness, and the thicker that layer is, the more disconnected you are from reality. So don't expect that your mind is suddenly going to become silent all of a sudden. We have a lot of inner muck to work through. It's all a discovery. This is akin to the symbolism of the labyrinth. We have to just keep working through the labyrinth, and eventually we'll find our way out of that maze, slaying many demons along the way. So this is a sort of common psychological dysfunction, that we're presented with so many options in life and we have no idea what to do or where to go. And this has become far more amplified in only the last 30 to 40 years with advancements in technology, internet transports, social media, We're presented with so many new ideas and possibilities, but barely any of us know what path we should take. And so part of self-realization and the power of the heart chakra is to realize what exactly you want to do in this world, and then move towards it and live that vision accordingly without any hesitation or second thought, because you have. Mental plane and causal plane. Similarly, there are also people who say they truly want to go to heaven, or in other words, reach a higher consciousness. However, they're so imbalanced in the heart chakra and other chakras that when they think they're doing good, they're actually still making their lives a constant hell, and their life becomes a constant struggle and battle. You may be able to think of examples in your own relations of when people seem to just have one problem after another, and they seem to be innocent and want to try and fix them. But the real problem is how negatively they're going about it, or making themselves a victim or something. As the well-known proverb says, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. So in other words, it really doesn't matter what you do if the way you're doing it comes from a negative victimized place, because it will usually have a negative outcome. This happens when we try desperately out of suffering to put the pieces of our life together, and think that external decisions and changes are going to fix our lives. For example, a couple who is having difficulties may choose to move to another country and think it may save their marriage, or have a child and think that will save their marriage. But obviously that's just a temporary cover-up on a path of ignorance. Obviously those old patterns will return because the issue at its root has not been given the proper attention at its core, at its heart. So we have to be willing to face all of our problems head on, and that takes daringness, courage, and the strength of heart that does not fear embarrassment, shame, or humility. Love is one of the most natural states we can feel, and the cause of why we are not commonly able to feel love is because we are disconnected from it. And how do we become disconnected? By constantly walking away from it, seeking something else to replace it in physical life, not realizing that it is natural to feel when we stop seeking, when we stop trying to do something to add more to our life. We're taught in modern society that we must work hard in order to attain something, in order to attain love. And so we've trained ourselves to be these hard-working mules, putting 1000% effort into attaining things, but by default, love requires no effort at all. However, for the average person today, it requires the same 1000% effort, because we've disconnected ourselves so far from the purity of mind that we have to work back through all of the confusions, ideologies, concepts, pain, suffering, and other entanglements of the ego. And when we're finally able to clean out all of our out-of-control desires and seeking and longings, only then does the arising of real cosmic love come within, because there is space for love, for kundalini to enter. And once you find that you'll never really rely on anyone or anything for your happiness, all you have to do is maintain your own spiritual connection. And actually, this is how we learn to love much more effectively. If your love is conditional for someone, then you're going to be asking them and demanding a lot of things, and you're not really being authentic. You're not really being the highest expression of love that you can be. But unconditional love, no matter what the person's faults are, is something on a totally different level that very few people are capable of. Or should I say, very few people don't practice. Of course, we are totally capable of it. It's said in Gnosticism that kundalini rises according to the merits of the heart, meaning the more we do what we know we are meant to do, striving for goodness, virtue, meaning, and uprightness in our lives, then kundalini will rise accordingly. You attain a sort of vigor in spirit as you will to do what is good, what you know is good. You know, it's our human nature to be able to conceive of the highest possible positive reality that we can, and then apply ourselves towards that. Why wouldn't we do that? There's really no other way to live, and to keep living like that until we face our death. Much better to keep moving forward than to stay comfortable in a nice place. Even the Buddha realized that because he was born into a privileged rich royal family, and he realized that he couldn't find enlightenment with all that comfort, so he left and pursued a life of asceticism. So in a big sense, the heart is also the temple of prayer, in the sense that we desire and choose what we want with higher emotions, and we call out and put vibrations out into the world of what we want in terms of spiritual self-awakening, and then choose to move towards that. So on that note, let's move on to the practical part. And well done to everyone who is seeking all of this self-improvement and self-realization diligently and patiently, not waiting for results but just being a practitioner and embodying these teachings, and with your own wisdom. It's really great to see. And for anyone else who is on the fence or scared to live a more committed spiritual life, perhaps there's some self-hate or lack of self-belief, I just want to tell you that you can do it. I totally believe, not believe, I know that when you apply yourself to your highest self, you will transcend whatever adversary you are going through right now, and that is absolutely true in every regard possible. You will no longer suffer from whatever you are suffering right now. It doesn't matter who you are, what you've done, what your past is, what you think of yourself. You know, it's better to assume that we probably killed people in our past lives, that we probably did the worst crimes possible in our past lives, We've had thousands of years of war and bloodshed, so what's wrong with just assuming that we've done all that? If you think you're bad in this life, think about what you probably did in past lives to get to this point where we are just so unawakened and we don't see anything or understand anything. We're blind. We're demons. It doesn't matter who you are. Liberation is now. This is the time. This is the age of Aquarius. A new cycle taught throughout many teachings. 2012 was just the beginning of much different energies on this planet, and it's very obvious to see in the manifestations of what's happening around the world. This is the time to wake up and do spiritual practice and live a better life. There's no other option in life than to take what we have now and walk towards it moving forward. It's not the time to stay in self-pity. It's not the time to have self-importance. It's not the time to overthink. It's time to walk the path and find self-realization, and you will make a massive difference not just in your own life but in the consciousness of everything. As I hinted earlier, nothing finishes when we die. The shaman Don Juan said that the only real advisor that we have, the only real spiritual teacher, the spiritual guru, is death. He said that death is our wisest advisor and that we should live with death by our sides, and that any time we feel sad or we feel desperate in any situation, we should turn to our death and ask what we should do. Because we can transcend many types of suffering, many things, but death is the one thing that controls us all. Nature dominates us all in this way, and to approach life as a preparation for death is the ultimate way to live. So you can devote yourself to spiritual daily practice. You'll see a huge turnaround on every level of your being. So with just words of encouragement you can do it. Don't let anyone else's belief get in the way of that. I also received a few questions related to how long we should chant these mantras. You can chant them in whatever way you like, however long you'd like. You can also combine multiple in one sitting. For example, you can do the U mantra, the solar plexus mantra, for 5 minutes and then change to the Ram mantra and then change to the Ram Sua mantra for another 5 minutes. Alternatively, you may choose to focus on the U for one day and other mantras another day, or each one per week, etc. Totally up to you and what you feel like you need and what you enjoy. It's totally flexible with all of these spiritual practices that I've been giving, including pranayama and everything. The only general structure is first, physical relaxation, then pranayama, then meditation, with a mantra and or a mudra. You don't always have to do a mantra. You can also do self-reflective meditation too, analyzing your own psychological states, your own psychological egos, and things like that. So practice and experiment and try to be sensitive to the results and effects in your daily life. Pay attention to your state of mind, how often you're in a positive or negative mood, how your interactions are with others, whether you're getting a better grip over compulsions, etc. It's all a process. Enjoy each step each day. We're all infinitely unique souls with different layers of consciousness, so it's almost impossible to give you a time to expect results. My personal advice is try to let go of expectations altogether if you want to gain the best possible results. The level of quality of practice and consistency and length will determine your level of quality and manifestations. And usually manifestations come without us noticing because we've been so immersed in self-transformation, in self-realization. It's usually like a day or a week, or it could be 10 minutes afterwards. Some like something happened that we realized, wow, that would have never happened if I didn't apply myself in this more focused, direct way. And you realize through constant and continual practice that, wow, I've transcended certain anxieties, depressions. I don't feel like eating that extra piece of cake anymore. I don't feel so unhappy and feeling sorry for myself. I'm actually finding myself being polite and helping the people around me. And of course you may have spiritual experiences too. If you intend for that to happen, you will say, I'm remembering more dreams. I'm having more out-of-body experiences. I'm noticing telepathic communications. I'm feeling energy in my body and other people's energy. And this all adds to your own awakening and intelligence and understanding of life. And of course, if you're new, you may want to start with just 5 minutes or 10 minutes a day. You can even set a timer. And if you feel you're enjoying it and you become quite good at it in a sort of ritualistic way as part of your daily habits, then you can go all the way up to an hour a day if you feel like you want to. So as with the other chakras, I'm going to give you the main vowel that you can work with the heart center, which is the letter O. It's not pronounced O, it's pronounced O. And not like the letter U. It sounds like this. A little bit like the Om mantra, but without the M. The Om mantra is also related to the heart, so you can certainly use that mantra as well. It's a very powerful mantra. Now optionally, as you keep your awareness on the heart, You can also combine this with moving your awareness to other chakras at the same time, and contemplate whether those chakras are operating through the intelligence and moral compass of the heart or not. You'll begin to sense whether how your other chakras have been functioning correctly and morally, and if not, you can simply feel what it is meant to do and solidify that into your being as you're meditating. Now recall from the previous episode we explored the mantra A, which is to do with the lungs and accordingly is also to do with the element of air, but also Akash. Akash, which in Sanskrit can also mean space or sky. So you can also combine this mantra or say it separately. Notice how people say, ah, when they're relaxing because it spaciousness back into that consciousness instead of being overwhelmed with objects and forms and consciousness taking up all the space. They can breathe because there's space. Ah, right? The main purpose in the Gnostic tradition for chanting the mantra A is also to recall past lives. So similarly, A is the first vowel that babies learn throughout the world no matter what culture or country you're from. Every baby, no matter who they are, first learns the word mama or papa. A is the Akasha, and of course newborn babies have just come from another life. That soul just manifested out of Akash, out of the space of consciousness and has come into the world of form and of sense objects. So most babies more commonly first say mama than papa because A is the Akash and M is the sensual center. Actually, this is also known in the Gnostic tradition as another mantra to connect with the Divine Mother and Divine Father. It's meant to be chanted
ma, pa, pa.
Actually, in Mozart's Magic Flute of Papageno they actually sing the Mama and Papa, and I believe it was the Freemasons who were angry that they did so because this was a secret mantra. And so the A mantra is not said as A but A like So there is also a zodiacal practice related to the practice of Leo. Now this is taught that it is particularly good to do during the time of Leo, but you can do it any time. And I'm teaching it here because it is to do with the heart. And what you do is you don't sit down for this. You lie down in bed and you spread your arms and legs out like a star, like a microcosmic star, like a pentagram. The pentagram being an expression of the human body. And you do that in bed and you totally relax. And when you're totally relaxed, you just keep your mind silently aware, observing the heart center. You focus it on the heart a little to the left of the chest, and if you're very sensitive you can feel it beating. You may feel the blood going through your entire body. You don't have to if it makes you squeamish, but you'll find with a little effort you don't need to be squeamish, and you simply just breathe naturally, and stay in this position totally relaxed, totally silent, with inner silence focusing on the heart. It's just a simple silent meditation, but doing it while you're laying on bed is very powerful. You should do this midday. Don't do it at night when you're going to fall asleep. Falling asleep is unconsciousness. So we want to be totally aware, vibrant with vitality, and just focusing on the heart. And you will feel a certain intelligence, a certain profoundness of being that arises when you just observe the heart, and through entering the heart temple you also exit the chaos of the mind. And it can be a very powerful practice, especially during the time of Leo, which is in July. I also introduced the deity Anubis in this episode. I also want to touch on the Divine Mother Kali, and similar to the mantra, Krim, and the god Agni, you can ask her to destroy those egos for you, especially when using the mantra Krim. This is particularly more powerful when we focus on the heart, since it's in the heart where we have love and attachment for the ego, and choose to act out certain behaviors and habits and negative ways of being because of self-love. So all of these kind of new age teachings that tell you you have to love yourself. You are amazing. You are divine, infinite consciousness. But it's not exactly the case, is it? Because we're mostly ego, and again we can't go about this simple-mindedly and naively, just carelessly loving ourselves, because that can set us up for a lot of conflict and a lot of more suffering when we don't get what we want, like little babies, because we love ourselves so much. Remember that loving yourself is a form of narcissism, so it's not always good to say that affirmation of, I love myself. Why do you love yourself? You're the cause of all your suffering, so don't just naively love yourself. Of course, connecting to the heart chakra, we are connecting to an unconditional divine love, and how I've been describing that kind of love, it is something way out of our reach in the highest dimensions of consciousness, so until we reach that kind of love it's dangerous to say I love myself. So to give a quick interpretation of this image, Kali best represents the Divine Mother's ability to transform us and get rid of our egos through her energetic love. As you can see, she's standing on the god Shiva, representing how nature rules us all, even the gods. And you can see how she has skulls or severed heads around her, meaning she's able to kill many of our egos in a very direct and ruthless way. Because we asked her. And through that self-sacrifice of the ego we are reborn through her. So the Divine Mother is not just this passive feminine force, she's also far more direct and forceful than masculine force. Now the deeper story of Kali is that there was once a spiritual war with a great demon, and this demon had a special power that every time a drop of his blood fell on the ground, more demons arose from there, so the gods were unable to beat him, so they went to the Divine Mother, Mother Durga or Parvati, the Lord Shiva's wife, and asked her to defeat this powerful demon. Because the Divine Mother is the mother of gods, she is more powerful than God itself. She gives birth to gods, and so being the Divine Mother who helps her children no matter what. And in order to do so, she transformed into the goddess Kali, and the goddess Kali cut this great demon's head and collected his blood before it touched the ground and drank it, and thus killed this undefeatable monster. But she also got engulfed by the wrath and started to slaughter everyone in her path. This points towards the fact that her fire is so powerful and transformative. But it went out of control, so the gods prayed to Lord Shiva, who came up with a solution to go and sleep in that war-torn land among all of the other dead bodies, and as Kali was making her way there out of control, she stepped on Lord Shiva, and just when she realized she put her foot on her husband, she calmed down and inevitably turned back into her usual self. And the reason why she's depicted as naked is symbolic that a mother can go to any limits to save her child, even at the cost of her own decency, which of course we also see with physical mothers in waking life too. And this is why any of us can invoke this cosmic energy in order to slay our demons, so she is actually a very high vibration of energy, and so when invoking her, you have to be very clear and specific of what you want to be destroyed during those moments, and at the same time have a great love and respect for her so that the energy does not become too fiery or passionate. To be transformative, we have to take our time, so notice how she has fire around her. Just as well as we've discussed in the previous episodes, this element of fire is great to have. It's very transformative, and it can burn all of this air element of thought forms and crap that's going on in our minds. This episode has gone on for quite long. I'll definitely be covering more episodes on the heart because there is truly so much to talk about and so many different practices. For example, there is known as 7 centers within the heart chamber that we pass through on the path. Also on the topic of foods, it's a very common piece of advice to eat foods that are the color of each chakra that you want to heal. So for example, with the heart, eat your greens, as they say, since the heart is an important one. And this wasn't really something that I focused on personally, but I just noticed it's a very common piece of advice that you may want to do. Thank you everyone, and see you on the next episode, which is on the throat chakra, which is where we learn about clairaudience. And remember, see the pinned comment below and leave a comment. Thank you everyone, and I'll see you in the next episode.